right, welcome everybody. My name is Abby. I am the Vice President of Gladys CCAT. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be going over some conference etiquette for first-time attendees. So with GLADA next week and then NADA coming up in a couple months, just to give you some pointers for your first time attending. Okay. So we're going to go through a couple slides and then we will be finishing up with a Q&A session today with myself, Jenna, and Molly. We are all on the Executive Leadership Committee for CCAT. So a couple of the topics we're going to go over today are reasons to attend a conference, a couple of highlights on our schedule, dressing for success, tips for networking, and then attendance etiquette, and then we'll finish up with some takeaways and Q&A. So why attend a conference? Any conference that you're able to attend is a great opportunity for professional networking. Especially with GLADA, you're meeting with other athletic trainers, potentially program directors or hiring managers from all over the Midwest. So it's a great way to meet new people. It's a good way to learn about specific and sometimes unique areas of athletic training or things that might affect your clinical practice through all the different talks at a conference. Going to a conference like this is a good opportunity to advocate for the profession. So learning about issues that are affecting the profession that you might not be aware of, especially as a student or a young professional. And also it's an opportunity to travel. So, you know, going to a conference in a fun city for the first time that you've never been to. Sometimes depending on your situation, your school or your job might pay for you to go on a trip like this. So a couple of highlights on the GLADA schedule. The GLADA oral free communication sessions. So these are like 10-minute mini speeches, and it's a different speaker for every 10 minutes. And they are deep dives on very specific topics. So I think that these are a lot of fun, and I think that they're a great way to learn about something specific and research-based. And it's easier to hold your attention for 10 minutes on a specific topic than on a longer, hour-long presentation. On Thursday, CCAT is hosting Quiz Bowl. So some of you that are still students might be participating in that. You can come and watch. So that's a good way to review if you're studying for the BOC or just to quiz yourself. And then immediately after that, we will have the poster free communication session. So different presenters student presenters will have their research posters set up and you'll be able to walk around and go learn about everybody's research.
We will have food and drink as well. There will be cookies and drink to come bribe you all to come.
Yes. And then Friday morning, there will be the vendor exhibits. So different companies will be presenting and marketing their products. So that's kind of fun also. So dress for success. A couple of do's and don'ts. A lot of the no's for professional dress are going to be jeans, shorts, any like joggers or crop tops. As far as shoes, you definitely want shoes that you are comfortable walking around in, but you don't want shoes that are too unprofessional. So like things like Converse or tennis shoes or really open-toed shoes are maybe not the most appropriate. Again, when you're attending a conference, you're going to be up and walking around and on your feet all day. So really any high heels that are over 3 inches are probably not going to be the best footwear for this event. If you're going to wear a skirt with your outfit, you want to make sure it's an appropriate length. So generally anything higher than like 2 inches above the knee is not the most professional. Any clothing that you would wear to clinicals is probably not appropriate for a professional conference. So for clothing that would be appropriate, dress pants are always a good bet. If you're going to wear a skirt, making sure that it's an appropriate length. So knee length or below would be most appropriate. Shoes that would be suitable would include dress shoes like flats, or if you are going to wear heels, a heel that's a little bit more conservative or not like a stiletto style heel. For men, like a dress shirt and tie Suit jackets are also a good option for women, blouses, and then maybe a blazer would be a good option. And then pantsuits are also good options. So networking is a really important part of attending a conference. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to practice your elevator pitch. So that's introducing yourself, where you're going to school, what you're hoping to accomplish after graduation. So that can include what setting you're hoping to work in, where you want to work, and where you're from if you're hoping to move away. You don't want to be shy because people, especially people who have been in the profession longer, definitely want to get to know students and young professionals, and that's a really important part of building your career as a new athletic trainer. And it's okay to network yourself outside of formal conference events. So when you're out and about during the conference around the conference center, it's definitely still a good opportunity to meet new people. So you'll want to introduce yourself with a firm handshake. You always want to give your first and last name. You also want to specify whether you are a student or certified and when you'll be graduating if you're a student. If you are a student, share what university you're going to, and then if you're certified, your company or what setting you're working in. And you are given a name tag at registration. It's helpful to wear your name tag.
Couple quick pointers, Abby, that I just thought of.
Yes.
People to network with. Anybody who's wearing a formal GLADA badge are good people to network with. They're going to have their title on their badge. You can ask them about what they do for GLADA, things along those lines. Also, anybody wearing a green jacket during the Hall of Fame day, the green jacket people are the Hall of Famers. So those are, whether it's a NATA Hall of Fame or a state Hall of Fame, they're given special blazer jackets that are green. Go ahead and introduce yourself to them because they've been in the profession for a very, very long time and are great people to know. So those are just a couple things to look out for. It's also great to introduce yourself to speakers. It's okay to go up and introduce yourself if someone talked about something you really liked. It's good to compliment the speakers as well. You never know what that conversation can get you.
So a couple of tips for attendance etiquette, whether you're going to those shorter presentations that I was talking about or some of the longer talks that are an hour long. Generally, you'll want to either arrive 5 minutes before the talk is going to start to find a seat, or if it's one talk right after the other, go into the conference room between when two speakers are changing over. If you do come in the middle of the speech, they don't really monitor doors, but if you do come in the middle, you'll want to try to take a seat in the back or on the end of a row. And if you have any cell phone or mobile device, you'll want to silence that and don't be on it during the talk. During the poster session, that's going to be Thursday night where we have the food and drink. It's okay you don't necessarily have to go like from one poster to the next, like down a line. It's okay to wander. If you see one speaker that has a crowd in front of their poster, it's okay to circle back to them. If you see somebody who has nobody in front of their poster, it's nice to stop by them and make sure, and it's good to ask a lot of questions. One good place to start is you can ask somebody where they hope to take their research next or what their favorite part of their research was. And some of you might be presenting, but when you present, it's research that you spend months and months on. So it's nice to have some questions about it and have people take interest in it. As far as personal conduct while attending the conference, any, school or job code of conduct that you're under, that should still apply. It's networking can be very positive or very negative. It's if you give someone a negative first impression of yourself, that's really difficult to undo. Especially around not even at just formal events, even around the conference. If you might run into somebody that you don't realize who they are, and then later on you're interviewing for a job with them. So Jenna, anything to add to that?
I was just going to say the same thing. You never know. You may be getting hired by that person, or it could be a recommendation if somebody met you or recognizes your name. It very well could be a recommendation for your future job.
So a couple of takeaways before we do our Q&A. Going to a conference is a huge opportunity, so you want to take advantage of all those opportunities. Those points on Dress for Success. You want to behave yourself while you're at a conference, try to learn a lot, and have lots of fun. So with that, I will open it up to any questions if you want to either unmute yourself and share a question or type in the chat, whatever works best.
Don't be shy, everyone.
Yes.
Are all of you attending GLADA next week? Or are you guys thinking of attending another conference first? I'll try to get you guys involved a little bit.
That's the teacher in you, isn't it?
Yes. All right, first question. Do you have any tips on how to approach those you want to network with? That is a great question. You guys want to start? Or do you want me to start?
You can start if you want to.
Okay. Honestly, if you're a super shy person, the best tip I can say is find someone that you know that whether it's a mentor or a professor or something, and have someone introduce you to start off. That was kind of one of the first things that I did. Is I kind of latched on to my mentor, and anytime he was talking to someone new, I kind of went up to him, and he very much introduced us right away. So that is something. It's okay to latch on to someone you already know and hope for some introductions. So that is one really good way, is to kind of latch on to somebody. Another thing is to just say hello, or you can start with, "Oh, I loved your talk. I'm really interested in dry needling. Where did you get started?" or something along those lines. Start with an interest, whether it's a topic or simply saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed that Pinky Newell talk. What did you think of that talk?" And it's okay to start with something along those lines, which, by the way, the Pinky Newell talk is the big session for everyone at GLADA.
Yeah.
That'd be a couple pointers.
Yeah, I always say start with a compliment of any sort. So especially if they're like a talk, do a talk, definitely, commend their talk, or even if they're doing a research presentation, commend their research presentation. Even if you really like someone's shoes, there's basic things that aren't athletic training related that you can definitely bond with a person quickly, and get talking about things. And then you can be like, "Oh, I really like your shoes. This is such a Midwestern thing too. Where'd you find them? Oh, they got them at Target," or something like that. And then obviously you can further on. Yeah, I mean, it's totally, and then we're like, "Oh, you bought them for $10 at Target." It's totally a Midwestern thing to do. But yes, definitely, don't hesitate to compliment people, or if you're a little nervous, the buddy system never hurts either, like Jenna said, or even if you have another classmate or something like that, you can go talk to people with. And then the more you do it, the easier it gets too. So the first couple times you're going to be nervous, especially on Thursday morning probably, but by Friday afternoon, it's going to get a lot better. So just know the first couple times are going to be a little bit nerve-wracking. But if you get over that hump, it gets much, much easier.
I also would encourage you to network during the fun session. So there's going to be a game night on Friday night where there's quiz bowl and there's cornhole. Don't pair off with your friends. Try to make team, that's a great time to network with other people. As the person who's making the questions, I highly recommend you meet, or you gather with people of all generations, because you're not going to win if it's just Gen Z people trying to answer all the questions that I made. I purposely made it so you guys are all kind of mixing together. So definitely network during the fun times. It's also not bad to do it outside at the restaurant. It's kind of really easy to spot athletic trainers at a conference. You're going to notice there are a couple of restaurants right outside of the hotel. One's called Spears. It's kind of obvious where all the athletic trainers are. You can simply just ask them if it's okay to have a drink. It's okay as long as you're as long as you're of age. It's okay to have a drink. It's okay to have food, and just sit and talk about the conference in those less formal settings as well.
And I also think it's best to start like with a compliment or try to make a connection. So like if they did their undergrad or they did their grad school at a university that's nearby where you went or where you're from, it's a good way to make a connection.
One last plug, 8 o'clock Friday night is trivia, 9 o'clock is cornhole Friday night. Jen and I are running it with Jen, so with another person. So 8 o'clock trivia at 9 o'clock cornhole tournament. I think
Bring
that
your
was
A game.
absolutely.
All right, next question. How do you prevent getting overwhelmed with new information in all the classes? Awesome question.
I think it's one thing that I like to do is I like after going to a session, write down like 3 key takeaways and 1 question you still have.
I bring a notebook with me and write notes the whole time because if I'm not doing something, my ADD is going to go every which way and I'm not going to be able to focus. So it's not rude if you have a pen and paper in front of you. I don't think most people are going to know or really notice. But I would definitely do pen and paper over a phone. I know there's the notes app on your phone, but then people are going to think you're texting. If you can get like a notebook to bring with you and write down topics that you enjoyed or things that they said that you could probably go back on. And I think most people do have like their their sources at the end too. So if you really liked an article that they used or something like that, you can jot that down quickly.
The biggest thing that has helped me taking notes and remembering things in conference is I actually have one giant portfolio. I got a free portfolio at another conference and I just have my notebook, and every note that I ever take from any conference is in that portfolio. So that way, when I'm going and doing rehab on a patient, I was like, oh, they talked about this at GLADA last year. I know exactly where to find that information because it's all in the same notebook. I actually finally had to put a new notebook in there last year because I have 10 years worth of conferences in one, but that notebook is still in the same spot. Like I saved it with all my other stuff. So highly recommend keeping notes in one notebook because otherwise, if you just take it on a random piece of paper, you may throw it away and not even realize, or you forget where you put it or something along those lines. So that would be my biggest recommendation. Taking notes is absolutely allowed.
Yeah.
What else? What other questions do we have?
Those are great questions. Keep them coming.
Mm-hmm.
Besides networking and attending sessions, how do you recommend we get the most out of attending GLADA?
I would say just going to all the fun sessions. Obviously we're there to learn as a conference, but you're also there, to you might see people that you haven't seen in a while. Like I worked a few jobs, so I'm excited to meet up with some friends that I haven't seen in a while. And so I definitely make sure you have at least time plugged in to have fun and to either meet up with people you haven't really met before, or if you meet someone and you're networking with them and you're like, oh, maybe we can grab like drinks later or dinner later, like don't hesitate to be able to further that conversation. And there's definitely opportunities to have fun at GLADA as well.
A lot of people blow off the business meeting because it's talking about the business of GLADA. But if you ever have any interest in getting involved in the business stuff, I highly recommend start attending the business meetings. One, they hand out gift cards and a lot of other free stuff. But two, getting to start hearing what's going on in GLADA and the business side of things can be really helpful. It takes a couple of years to start understanding what's all going on, but the more you hear it, the better you're going to start understanding and the more willing you'll be able to get involved.
I think definitely taking advantage of the fun things. If you've never been to Chicago before, if it's possible in your travel plans to like spend a day exploring Chicago, I would definitely recommend doing that.
I am going to NADA this year and went to GLADA last year. What are some things at NADA that are a must go to, and anything different about how to approach NADA? Ooh, that's a great question. NADA is extremely different from GLADA. And the reason why, so GLADA is all of the sessions are within usually 3 rooms at GLADA, and it's very easy to get to and find. Everything is kind of condensed. Everything's in one hotel. It's really easy to get around GLADA. There's not a lot going on that you have to choose from. NADA is kind of the wild, wild west. There are a lot of sessions. They're in sometimes different buildings, not always, but sometimes they're at least in different hallways. There's usually 5 or 6 going on at once. It can be very different. So the biggest thing that you have to be with NADA is you actually have to be pretty organized. If you don't go in with NADA, if you don't go into NADA without a plan, you are going to struggle a little bit. Versus GLADA, you can kind of wing it. You don't really need a plan. You can just kind of sit in the same room all day long if you wanted, and you would get a session coming to you. Versus NADA would get very overwhelming very quickly if you don't have a plan. So with NADA, you need to get the book ahead of time. I think it's an app now. I haven't been to a NADA since it was in Vegas, so it's been a while. But NADA, very much, you need to kind of have a plan and idea of where you want to go. Also, the expo session for NADA is extremely different. It's about 4 times the size of the GLADA expo, which basically means it's a lot more fun to kind of walk around. It's in a lot bigger of a room. There's just a very different monster, I guess you could say. GLADA is my favorite conference because it's organized, it's small, but there's still enough learning sessions going on that I don't feel like I'm still learning something every time. Hopefully that answered the question.
The only other thing I would add with NADA is a lot of times your school will have like an alumni event of sorts. So I would highly encourage reaching out to your old program director, or obviously a lot of you guys are still in school. I would definitely try to attend the alumni event. It's a good way to network and get an idea of what people are doing now that have graduated from your similar program. So that helps me at NADA because it is it's a totally different and extremely overwhelming experience, in my opinion, compared to GLADA. So I'm glad you've been to GLADA. So then NADA, you kind of get a better idea. So that's a good way to do it.
And
the alumni sessions are really fun, by the way. Yeah,
exactly. Go ahead, Abby. Sorry.
I have nothing to add because I've never been to NADA. So
yeah. Well, the alumni sessions, highly recommend, because I'll be honest, that is the only time I get to see my classmates. Because life doesn't really allow us to meet. So you may not, as students right now, you're not going to necessarily appreciate it as much, but 5-10 years from down the road, you're going to love those alumni gatherings. So definitely attend those if you can. And there was confirmation that there is an app for each instead of, it's no longer paper. So those are all great questions. Anything else?
speaking of the book versus the app, the program is available on the GLADA website. So if that's something that interests you, you can definitely look through that before next week and start picking out sessions you definitely want to attend.
Yeah, even for GLADA, I'm an organized person and I have to be organized and kind of have a plan. So it is nice ahead of time just to review the different sessions and maybe highlight one a day that you really want to hit, and then you can kind of go with the flow the rest of the day. Is probably good working.
Absolutely. Do you have any tips on asking someone for their contact information when talking to them? It's actually not as difficult as you may think, because a majority of professionals who've been to conference before carry their business cards on them. So it's actually simply asking, do you happen to have a business card to where I can contact you? Yes, that's something that you're going to start learning to start carrying with you. The minute you get a business card, take them to all the conferences. All you have to simply ask is, do you happen to have a business card that I can email you later? A majority of them will be willing to just give them to you.
I like to hand mine out like candy. You get one, you get one, you get one. Merry Christmas.
It's like the only time I ever pass them out is at conferences.
Yeah, no, the whole stack sits in my drawer 99% of the year.
Which, by the way, if you don't have business cards, you don't say it's okay for them to give them you, but then as you become a professional, go ahead and get some made so you have some for yourself. It also saves a lot of time filling out expo freebie giveaway stuff. You just drop your business card in rather than having to fill out the paper every time. It's really helpful.
That's a good question.
How do you make yourself stand out at these conferences? I think a couple things on that. One, just be personable, be likable. Like don't be afraid to introduce yourself, but also understand you don't necessarily have to stand out tremendously. Like you don't have to be the center of the entire stage. Just having a good one-on-one meaningful contact and conversation is going to be way more, it's going to make you stand out a lot more than you trying to meet with a bunch of people with no meaningful conversations. So I don't know. I think I personally remember the students who had a more meaningful conversation a lot more than the students who just introduced yourselves and walked away. Because I have a hard time remembering names. So the meaningful conversations is the people are the ones who stand out to me the most. What do you think, Abby?
I agree with that. I think just trying to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, that'll make you stand out.
I don't think of anything else. That's good too. And I always feel like dress for success for sure. Like I will definitely kind of, I guess not pay more attention is the wrong way to put that, but definitely if you look presentable and your mannerisms are very professional, I think that goes a long way with communicating with people.
Mhm. Students recommended that all students should even get a business card. It was really helpful. I'll be attending GLADA for the first time this year. What would be 3 things or more that you think is a must to get out of the conference? Well, I'm a little biased on this because our CCAT runs. If you are a student, highly recommend Quiz Bowl because it's a great VOC review, personally. It's going to give you a lot of questions about topics that are going to appear on the board exam. The Pinky Newell talk is usually really, really good. I don't think I've ever sat through a bad speaker. It's the main talk this year. It's on Friday afternoon. I highly recommend that one. It's always been pretty good in the past. What do you guys think?
I think definitely going to at least one like less formal network or no,
Yeah.
not networking, but you know, a less
Event.
formal event just to get some networking. And I feel like that would be one of your 3.
And that could be the quiz, that could be the cornhole and trivia on Friday night. Pinky Newell talks a little bit less formal. That one's kind of nice. You can do the poster presentations. That's a little less formal. You get to eat while we're bribing you with food. So come on, get some cookies.
4 to 5 on Thursday.
Yep.
Put in your calendar.
Honestly, my most meaningful conversations at GLADA have always been at dinner after the day. So going and finding there was a tradition that started about 6 years ago. My mentor invited me to dinner with Daryl Conway and Ed Strapp. It was just random meeting. We're like, hey, let's all go to dinner together. And we actually still all get together and eat dinner every GLADA. And it's like, this is 5 years in a row. Hopefully this will be year 6 next week. We don't plan it ahead of time. I haven't talked to these men for months, but I'm hoping we can still do it again next year. It's the random talks at dinner that tend to be the most meaningful. And I get the most out of my most education. I get some great mentoring tips. Those have been all pretty helpful.
I would definitely say if you could make one good connection with someone, that would definitely be worth your time. If you're shy, especially if you're a shy person and you're really anxious about it, if you feel you made one good connection with someone, that's definitely an awesome takeaway from your week.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Julia where she suggested going to the business meeting. It's a great way to figure out who your leaders are. You'll figure out who the president of GLADA is. You'll get to see a face with a name. So that way, when you get the random emails from them, you kind of start recognizing who's who. It's definitely a great way. It's not, like she said, it's not the most exciting in the world, but it also is a great way to network. You're going to see the award winners. You're going to see, because they announce the awards at the business meeting as well. So those are all great ways to start a conversation. A few of my classmates and I are staying offsite at one of the parents' houses 20 minutes away. How much extra time do you think we should allow to travel and find parking? Great question. I think my first 3 or 4 GLADAs, I always bought an Airbnb or something off the site. It was a lot cheaper. You said about 20 minutes away with Chicago traffic.
Are you coming from the city or towards the city? If you know, that makes a difference too. But you probably don't know that yet, but it just depends.
Parking itself is actually really easy.
Yeah.
There's usually enough parking right on site. You may have to walk maybe 5 minutes maybe 10 minutes at the most from a parking lot, but it's all on site parking. Sometimes you get lucky and you can find a parking spot right next to the door. That's not always the case, but it is nice when you do get that. So I would say parking about 10 minutes. And then if it takes 20 minutes, I would try to arrive at least. I'm from Ohio, so I have no idea what that means. Molly, do you?
I'm about to look it up for you.
Okay. I would say it's good for the first session of the day to try to be there 15 minutes early, just to give yourself wiggle room, maybe time to go to the bathroom or grab a coffee if you need to. I don't really have.
I would say morning traffic is probably going to be closer to 30 to 35 minutes. Even though like right now I Google mapped it's like 20, I would say closer to 35 just for driving.
If you're not from Chicago, Chicago is very different traffic than, like, let's say Ohio's traffic.
And I'm from Central Illinois, so it took a learning curve for a while to learn how to drive, and people are nuts. But
worst case scenario, like it's better to be early than super late. Yeah. So worst case scenario, you get there a little early.
At least on Thursday, and then you can probably time it better for Friday.
Mm-hmm. And then Saturday will probably be probably less traffic even.
Yeah, and probably more parking on Saturday too.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are sessions on Saturday, so don't forget that. A lot of people tend to skip Saturday. It tends to be pretty empty sessions. Those are all great questions. Any other great ones?
All right. Any final questions, comments, thoughts, anyone?
You're welcome.
My final thought, I guess, would be just to definitely practice your introduction ahead of time. And then maybe in the morning, say some positive words to yourself in the mirror. You're not always, it took me a long time to be confident. And so I think sometimes just making yourself feel better before you leave the house doesn't hurt either. So I know it might be silly, but if you just practice what you're going to say to people beforehand. Hi, my name is Molly. I work at Advanced Rehab and Sports Medicine. I'm the operations manager. And then whatever else. It doesn't hurt to practice. Or if you have a classmate, practice with a classmate.
Also remember, athletic training is a great profession. None of none of the people going are unapproachable. Every single person that you go there will be more than happy to have a conversation. I say, just don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Every single person there has been in your shoes. They understand it. They remember. Yeah, we're a great profession. Everybody's gonna talk to you. We're a pretty friendly group of people.
I would say GLADA is definitely a good first conference experience. I
Yeah.
actually went for the first time last year as a student, and now I'll be going this year as a certified, and I'm definitely excited to go back. I felt like it was worth the trip and worth the time to go. So, especially if you're planning on going to NATA.
GLADA is my favorite conference. I've been to all of them, and I love going to GLADA. It's the perfect size. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. I really appreciate this. This was a great first step for you all. Appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules.
If you see any of us at GLADA, feel free to say hi.
Come
Just
on up.
stop us. You don't even have to do a weird introduction to say hi. All right, have a good night, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Don't forget to stop recording.
Yes.